Hey there, Beck and Nick here. Welcome to The Conversation. We're so grateful you're here.
We met through business and became best friends through a shared passion to help women earn more and give more.
We are the founders of Women, Wine and Wealth, have global businesses helping women, and are your hosts of The Spill.
The Spill connects you to real conversations for women, by women, in a way you haven't heard before. So grab your wine and let's spill.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Spill. We are so excited for this episode because, ladies, we are bringing you another woman to have in your corner. So she's known as Swiss Army Knife of Coaching, and it has been said that she is the best kept secret in the coaching world. But the problem with that is Nick and I are not very good at keeping a secret. So now a secret for not much longer. She is an internationally recognized speaker, coach, and writer who teaches her audiences and students the real path to success is through extraordinary relationships. Beth Hanaszewski, welcome. We are so excited to dive into a good old-fashioned honey whiskey chat with you.
We thought you'd like that one.
Love it. Love it.
So, ladies, to kick off, we are going to fire some questions at you, Beth, just because we've done the fun way where they're just like rapid fire questions, random fun, because it's a quick way for the ladies to get to know you. So, first question for you, and they're just like one-word answers, whatever comes to mind. So, first question.
Okay, feeling anxious already.
Okay. So
keep it G-rated.
Okay.
This is why.
Yes.
Okay. What would you tell your 30-year-old self?
My Lord, I would tell her so many things. But if I'd give it one word, I would just say believe in yourself. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like that. What would you want your 80-year-old self to say about your life that is being lived?
Oh, gosh, that it was just a riot, right? That we had so much fun. It was delish, like something like that. Just juicy, delicious, badassery. That's what I hope my 80-year-old self says. Way to break the rules.
Yeah, love it. Okay, what makes you angry? Like, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, okay. Well, that may be a few things, depending on my husband. No, just kidding. What keeps me up at night? I think that, it's interesting you ask that question because clearly I'm not capable of a one-word response in the rapid fire business. But I remember this one time I saw this speaker and he said, we all times in our lives, we experience spiritual discontent. And he said, it's like when, so often we have, when people say, oh, you should do what you love, right? Do what you love. We hear this, blah, 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 it's very cliche. And this speaker really changed it for me because he said to me, do you remember, I don't know, maybe you guys didn't get it in Australia, but do you ever hear of the cartoon Popeye? Do you? Yeah? With the whole olive oil and Brutus and, and then every episode was the same because Popeye would say, he'd get to his breaking point and then he'd always say the same thing. He'd say, I can't stand it no more. And this speaker said to me, he goes, what pisses you off? What can't you stand? That is a clue to what you're supposed to be doing in the world. The stuff that really infuriates you. So when I think about that, from that point of view, this question, it makes me think of Popeye and what can I stand? And, I get pretty fired up about a few injustices in the world. So it pisses me off when, for example, I'm a huge animal lover. So animal cruelty, I can go to the mattresses over that shit. I'm also very involved with lots of charities that involve women and children. And oppression, particularly, so any sort of marginalization, oppression, you name it, that happens to women and girls, I'm pretty angry about those things as well. I mean, obviously basic shit I get mad about, bad drivers and things like that. But really, when I think about what really makes me mad, it's those issues. Children, women. pets.
It's that stuff, right? Because even when, of course, there's daily things that, of course, infuriate us and like trigger us. But
for
when
sure.
you ask that question, it's like that's where you can get that real clarity to go, oh, this is a reason why. If you're stuck on a reason why, or if you're trying to, like you said, come up with that stuff that's a bit cliche. What am I passionate about at the moment? What do I love doing? It's just like what pisses you off?
Yeah.
Like, what makes you so angry, it makes you stand up for something, and love it.
It's a juicy question.
And I also love how you started off with my husband, because that's everyday stuff, and we really everything changed.
Like last weekend, I was really mad at him, but you know, he turned it around. He shaped up. I reminded him he was not the greatest. Yeah, more on that later about how to ask what you want from a man. Yeah.
I'll write that down. We're going to do that. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one. What is one of your pet peeves?
Oh gosh, pet peeves.
Besides your husband.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can't really think of anything good. Like I don't really have a lot of pet peeves. I mean, I've done ones like, you know, around the house. In fact, I was just, okay, this is the only one I can think of. So it's not going to win any, you know, great points here. But, in our house, you know how sometimes you clean things and then your family blows through the house and it's like you didn't even clean anything. So I'm like, I've started this new, instead of like yelling at my family or like nasty texting everybody in the group family chat, like, right, which is super, you know, enlightened of me. But so now I've decided it's like death by Post-it notes. So the other day I was cleaning the microwave for the 87th time because every single person who uses the microwave just lets food explode in it and then they just walk away. So I cleaned it and then I left a little paper towel and a little Post-it note and I said, see this nice clean microwave? Just if you want it to stay this way, just use the paper towel, right? And every single one of my family bursts out laughing when they open the microwave because they're like, oh my God. So now that's my new thing. Anytime I'm cranky about something, I'm just going to put Post-it notes all over all the stuff that people aren't doing in my house. So
good tip. Yeah. I'm going to take that on. Okay, last one. Who is one of your heroes, Beth?
Oh gosh, I have so many. You know, I love a lot of, most of my heroes are women writers or speakers or coaches that I just love or follow or read their work. And right now I'm kind of super crushing on two women. One is Glennon Doyle, love her. And the other one is Mel Robbins. Me and Mel are tight right now. I'm all about Mel. And, you know, I've been driving her around in my head. I download all her books and, you know, I know you guys know who Mel Robbins is because I think, you know, yeah. So that's probably, you know, I don't know, hero maybe, I don't know, but for sure serious crushes on those two women. And probably, you know, you can't, you know, Brené Brown, Liz Gilbert, like those are kind of my favorite women to read, listen to, follow, learn from, just juiciness.
Yeah. Amazing. Mm-hmm. Awesome, ladies. Well, let's get into more of a juicy chat with you, Beth. So we had the pleasure to kind of chat with you a couple of weeks ago, and both Beck and I got off the call and we're like, "Fuck, she's fun," and we're like, "We can't wait to chat with her." And there was so much that, you know, and ladies, when you ask someone like, "What do you do and what do you help people with?" and sometimes, you know, marketers will say you have to be very specific in what problem you solve, and it's like I loved how you were like, "I coach the whole woman." Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's about the whole woman for me. So it's not just about this, you know, one area. It's about exploring all of it. And we know that your, I guess, mantra, your belief is really teaching your students about how to get real success through extraordinary relationships. Mm-hmm. Tell us, when you talk about the whole woman, what do you mean? Like, what is that? What do we need to be looking for? What are the blind spots? Why do you love the whole woman kind of coaching?
Okay. Oh, that is juicy. Okay. Well, you know, so often people, you know, maybe, you know, I'm going to start with a story instead because I think this is probably better. Like many people, when they're looking for a coach or, someone to work with, help mentor them or inspire them or help them with something they're doing, they usually hire that person for one reason. So, in my case, it's usually one of two reasons. They're trying to up-level their business or they're trying to save or find or there's some sort of big relationship situation that they're working with. And so when I start coaching somebody, the first thing we do is actually look at their whole life, right away, even though they're like, okay, let's get to the business, right? Because I want to know where are they depleted, where are they struggling, not just on this challenge that brought them to the call. So for example, one of my favorite assessment tools is Joshua Rosenthal's Primary Foods. Do you know who he is? Have you ever heard of Joshua Rosenthal? Okay, so let's do it. Can we just do a fun pop coaching right on the spot? Okay, and then that way if people are watching this, they can do it too, and just to see how you're where you're at in your life. Okay, so Joshua Rosenthal says, we need to be mindful of our primary foods. So when I say to you primary foods, what does that mean to you?
Means like your proteins, your greens, your all the high nutrition.
That's exactly what I thought. What we eat, the whatever, the proper food guide, blah, blah, blah.
The greens, the colors. Yeah.
Those aren't primary foods. Those are secondary foods. Your primary foods are the areas that feed your life. And we know this to be true because, and of course there's a correlation between how well your life is going and your food choices, because I don't know about you, but when I am stressed out or pissed off or freaking out about something, I am not reaching for broccoli. You know what I'm saying? I am not looking for healthy food. I'm like the chips and the popcorn and the chocolate and the wine. And, I'm not eating well when I'm stressed out. So he always says, see how your primary foods are. So your primary foods there's 4 of them. So your relationships. So just even in this moment, rate your relationships out of 10. So if you have all your relationships, now, of course, you have some 10 out of 10 people in your life, those bestie girlfriends and your 3 a.m. people, and maybe your lover is awesome this week and all the things. But then there's still some people that are ticking you off, or maybe you got some toxic family members or some really, hard to handle people that might be, you accidentally married. So write down what you got to average the not so good ones with the great ones. And then you'll come up with your number. Like, really, okay, everything's great except these 2 people but they're really toxic. And if someone's really toxic and really primary in your life, it's going to lower your average much more than a distant relative that you never see, that you just hate, but you never see them. So who cares? Okay. So ready? Out of 10. So, okay. So make your number out of 10. The next one is your career or your work. So whatever you do for work, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a CEO, you're something, everything in between, you're a high level this or medium that, it doesn't matter. Whatever is your work. And so again, rate it out of 10, and not just you're employed or you're busy like a stay-at-home mom, but you also have to think about all the factors. Are you doing what you love? Is it joy for you? Is it the kind of time freedom that you want? Is it in the role that you want? Are you being compensated the way you want? All of it adds up to 10 out of 10. If all that's 10 out of 10, then it's a 10. If some bits are good and some bits are not so good, then you got to lower your average. Okay, make sense? Mm-hmm. Third one is physical activity. Now, Joshua Rosenthal is very clear about this. It's not just kind of like couch to fridge to couch. That doesn't count as physical activity. No. So you have to actually get your heart rate up for at least 20 minutes a day for it to be 10 out of 10. And it doesn't matter what activity, though. You can be doing anything. Run, walk, hike, yoga, dance, have sex if you can do that for 20 minutes straight, whatever. As long as your heart rate's up, totally counts. Okay.
Beth, I can. The problem is the partner.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, if you're having, if you're involved with a partner often, it's about 3 minutes. Let's be honest, ladies. No. You have to also go for a walk then, if that's the case. Anyways, physical activity, rate your physical activity. 10 out of 10. I'm moving it every day. 0 out of 10. I'm just thinking about ordering new running shoes. Okay. And then now most people think of those three, right? Like it's kind of like the health, wealth, relation, love, you know, like that's kind of our pillars that everybody's really familiar with. But what I love about Joshua Rosenthal's work is that he says there's one area that almost everybody neglects unless they're feeling, you know, then unless they're really killing it in the success department. And that is the fourth area, which is spirituality. Or mindfulness. If you don't like the word spiritual, that weirds you out. You think I'm talking about God. I'm not. Although you could be a religious practice, but it's not necessarily, right? It could be prayer, but it also could be meditation. It could be a hike in the forest. It could be, you know, you read or you know, meditate, whatever. Pause. You just, you know, the point is, to me, a spiritual practice is when you actually just do nothing for a period of time, which, you know, most women do not do well, right? And lots of men. We don't want to, you know, leave out the men in this equation, but since we're all about women right now, I'll just talk about women. And women and meditation is, I don't know about you, but I signed up for a 12-week meditation course one time. So I thought it would, you know, get my Zen on. And, you know, it was like 90 minutes and we'd sit for 20 minutes at a time and then kind of debrief and then sit and literally just sit. Like if there was a bubble over my head, you know, I was feeling actually bad. I was so angry having to sit there for 90 minutes. I was like so pissed off by the time I was like, where's the Zen? This is bullshit. The fuck? I'm sitting here for 90 minutes and I'm so angry. And anyways, apparently, according to Buddhism, it's not about getting all calm. It's just about noticing, being uncomfortable, being willing to sit in discomfort. Who knew? If I'd known that, I wouldn't have signed up for that course. But anywho's, rate your spiritual practice, okay? If you're big, 20 minutes every day, then give yourself 10 out of 10. And then if it's not, you're like me, avoid it like the plague, 0. Okay, now add up your score. Just tell me your score out of 40. You don't have to tell me your individual scores, and for those of you playing at home, write down your score. Okay, what'd you get?
19.
19. Okay, what about you?
23.
23. Okay, well, here's the great news. Ready? You're totally normal. Oh. Yeah, you're totally fucked. No, you're totally normal. Yeah, totally normal. Almost 95% of the people I do the test with are in anywhere from literally 18 to 25. That is where the whole world lands. Like, so it's very normal that we are killing it in a couple areas. We're like, woo, 7, 8, and then the other 2 are like totally neglected, right? Yeah. And that is why when you say, what do you mean by coaching the whole woman? Because I want all those areas. I want you to be what we call a well-fed woman. So if 19 or 23, right, you're half fed. So guess what that means? That you're half able to really cope with stress, with, you know, unexpected stuff, like when shit hits the fan, and you may not, you know, be a little reactive. Let's say you accidentally, you know, rip off, you know, someone's face when they, you know, barely say anything, or the person who left you on hold for an hour and you just freak out at them, right? It's because you don't have any reserve. If you're half starved, half fed, no wonder. And so when I'm coaching the whole person, I want you all of those areas. So even though we might be talking about your launch and what's happening in your business, and let's make some, you know, serious coin, of course we're going to talk about that. But I'm also going to be checking in on the areas that I know are low. Like, do you move? Do you pause? How's your relationships? Because they all affect us. We cannot, you know, I don't know anybody. Like, for example, if you ever work in an office, have you guys ever worked in an office?
Yeah. Right.
Or something, or anywhere that, you know, there's other people around, right? If someone's having a bad day, everybody knows it, right? Everybody knows it. Someone's going through a divorce, they know it. You know it. Someone's mom just died, you know it, right? We do not, leave ourselves at home when we go to work, and we don't, go to work and leave ourselves. We are all things all the time. All of these things are always affecting us and how well we are. And that's why I always coach the whole woman. That was a very long answer to one question. I hope you don't have too many questions, or we're going to be here till a long time.
No, I was just going to say, I think the call's done.
Yeah, that's it. Done. Yeah.
It's not though, because if that was the first question, I am so excited for what's going to come for the next couple.
Right? Okay. Well, there you go. It's my favorite thing.
That was even you just speaking about being a well-fed woman. That's just a great start. That connects straight away. So thank you. I know that there's probably going to be a lot of women watching that. Hopefully you've done your scores and go back and watch the replay and actually just sit with it and be really honest with yourself. So that was amazing. So going on from that, Beth, I wanted to find out around making, you spoke to Nick and I a couple of weeks ago about making decisions with women who make their decisions around with their values and not the clock.
Yeah.
And then you also said things around like the 5 a.m. club as well. And would you be able to elaborate on both?
I just love that club so much. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why we fell more in love with you.
No. Yeah, I do not. Yeah, I do not. Now, I'm not saying anything against people who love the 5 a.m. club, which was sort of proposed. I mean, there's a few people that have talked about it, but, Robin Sharma is probably most famous for the 5 a.m. club. But I want to just back up for 1 second before I talk about that, because I just thinking about what people said, and I just want to get on a little, so I just thought maybe it's not a pet peeve, but it's definitely, you should have asked, what's your soapbox? Okay. Because I have a few soapboxes I like to stand on, and your comment back just triggered me into having a little soapbox moment, where I just want to say that so often, especially when we do like little assessment tools, right? We're like, okay, let's see where you're at, and we got to see where your now is before we can, set a goal and all the thing. Okay, let's step on the scale, and then, and whenever we do that, we get this assessment, that number on the scale, or you look at your bank account, or you actually open up your credit card bill, or you do a primary food assessment, and it's not killer. You're not killing it. The instinct is to judge. Right? And just be so hard on yourself. You're like, fuck, I'm such a loser. I'm so fat. I'm so broke. I can't believe, right? And that little voice in your head rears up and reminds you that you're just a piece of shit. And I just want to say, this is what I want you to say to that voice, if it rising up as you, oh my God, I'm only 19. I'm only 12. I only got, my score is 20. Like, I suck, right? Is to just interrupt it, right? And interrupt and say, we're not going there. Just say that. We're not going there. And just be compassionate, and just instead go curious. So instead of going all judgy on yourself, is to go curious, sort of like the weather. Like if I asked you to look outside, what's the weather like out there today? What would you say?
Here it's glorious.
Glorious. Great. Yeah. Beck, how's the weather in yours?
It's really gloomy.
Gloomy. Okay. And here where I am, it's raining. Right. But you know what? It's like, that's just the weather. Right. And I mean, unless you're planning an outdoor wedding, it doesn't really matter. You just deal with it. Right. You're like, oh, that's interesting. It's, it's sunny, it's cloudy, it's rainy, it's whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just like, And that's how I want you to think about that. That would be my, coach's invitation. When you notice yourself judging, go, that's interesting. That's a low score. Interesting. Oh, even the judgment. Wow, I am really being hard on myself right now. That's interesting. And kind of just come from this beautiful place of curiosity and observation and go, interesting. And that's it. And it really interrupts. It helps those beautiful neural pathways that want to go down that road of, flagellation, self-flagellation. And it just interrupts it and goes, we're just going to notice it today, not judge it. So I just wanted to say that about the primary foods before I moved on, because it's so easy to go down that slope of I'm sucking. Okay.
I love that.
Okay, back to what you asked me. Now, around the yes or no's or the value, can you re-ask me the question? Because now I went down off. Now I got lost on my soapbox and I can't get back.
I think that's why I loved you the most when I met you a couple of weeks ago, because I'm like that. I'm like a deer in headlights. So when you spoke to us around women who make their decisions on their values and not the clock.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the 5 a.m. club. Oh, thank God you brought me back. Okay, I'm back.
You're back.
Yes. So, okay. So the values is, related to the yes and no's even stronger. So I just want to talk about the 5 a.m. club, because for anyone who's read any personal development, you may have heard that it's really important to have a power hour. Ideally at 5 a.m. And you get up and you set your intentions, you jump in an ice cold bath maybe, and then you run around the block and you set, clarify your goals, and it's very get her, right? And that's great if that works for you. But it's also quite masculine. So if we can talk kind of masculine and feminine, not men and women, there's a big difference between men and women and masculine and feminine. And we can go explain more about that, because that's another one of my favorite topics, is to really talk about the masculine and feminine. But if you are someone who really identifies with masculine qualities, you love that plan. You love it because it's rigid, it's stringent, it's like hard and fast, it's it's very set. Get up 5 a.m., no exceptions, right? It's almost militant. But the masculine, many people who run masculine energy, men or women, love that, right? Well, that's on me. So I don't belong to that 5 a.m. club. As I told you guys, I belong to the get shit done when I get up club. That's what I love being productive. I love running my business. I love getting shit done, but I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. every day because I'm just going to be cranky. It doesn't feel good to me. And I think it's really important to not do things that don't feel good. I mean, I'm not saying we can't do hard work. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you have a choice. So like, for example, let's talk about fitness. This one time I was coaching this woman and we were doing the primary foods with her. So it's a perfect kind of, exactly what we were doing now. And I asked her, what's your physical activity? And she said, 9 or 10 out of 10. I go to the gym every day. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. She goes, yeah. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, but I kind of hate the gym. And I'm like, you hate the gym, but you go every day? Well, yeah, like I gotta, I gotta be in shape. And I said, well, why don't you do something you love every day? Right? I'm all down for the working out, but why do you go to the gym? And it sounds so obvious when I tell you this story, and I'm sure everyone, you're listening, and those who are listening later are going to be like, yeah, obviously, don't do an physical activity that you hate. But she didn't give herself permission. She didn't. And it was like this aha moment for her when I said, why don't you just do some physical activity you love? Like, do you love to do anything? She goes, I love bike riding. I love hiking outside. I actually hate that gym. I hate the mirrors. I hate the sweaty men. I hate everything about it. I'm like, I think you should quit the gym. Just quit it. And that's what I mean by give yourself permission to do things the way that makes you feel good. Same with your business. You should do things that make you feel good. It does make me feel good to get up at 5 a.m. every day. I'm not in my joy. Although ironically, almost always when I travel, I get up early to watch the sunrise, which is kind of crazy. But on my everyday, I'd rather just, people are like, oh, let's go to 6 a.m. yoga. There's another whole club of people that go to 6 a.m. yoga, like Sandy Canton, for example. She's in that club. So if she's listening to this later, I'm like, she's a 6 a.m. or she loves that. And this is why I tell my friends when they say, let's go to 6 a.m. yoga. I said, I'm already in Shavasana. Like I'm already there. Like I don't need to go to the studio. I am already in my most beautiful corpse pose, which frankly, ask any yoga is the point of yoga is to get to Shavasana. Anyways, that's my point about that. It's just like, you don't have to join the 5 a.m. club, the 6 a.m., the 8 a.m. Do you and work when it serves you.
Yeah. I love that. I think, I'm curious to know, So I don't know if it's the same as boundaries. Like the things that are coming up when I listen to you are one that I don't even like the word balance, but making sure that you're making the decisions, because some things won't feel great but are required to be done.
Okay.
And in the sense of like, so don't use that as a cop out not to do what maybe you need to do. But then, like you said, if there's not going to be pure joy in it or at the end of it, is that how you decide? Is that making sense?
Okay, give me an example.
So, you know, when some people say, oh, it's not in alignment for me, so I don't want to do that. And it's like, no, it's just uncomfortable for you. There is that big difference, right? So how do we know when we're copping ourselves out in a sense? Because it's like, well, I'm just going to say, well, it's not in alignment for me, versus being truthful and going, I'm just saying that because that's my way out of it.
Okay. You know, that's really, you know, and you're right. It is a little bit of a slippery slope, because you'd be lots of things we don't feel like doing that you have to do. Right. Yeah. And this is where maybe the values come into place. So, you know, one of the things, you know, or even having like one of my favorite exercises is to choose a word of the year. Right. Do you guys ever do that? Do you have a word that you choose for the year?
I haven't done it. I've seen a lot of people who do, but I haven't personally.
Okay. Well, it's up to you, but I love this idea because, and not that you can only have one word that your whole life's about, but it becomes kind of like a North Star. It's like a little driver, right? So, you know, I've had lots of words. I of course, all my clients, you know, we usually do this in January or December. Actually in December is really when we do it, because we want to call in the new year, actually even before it arrives. So, but you can do it anytime. And, you know, people choose things like love or joy or simplicity or adventure or freedom or, you know, the happy, like you just pick something you want the year to be about. Maybe it's success, whatever. Right. So let's take joy, because that's my word for this year, which, you know, is like a repeat. Joy seems to always come back every couple of years. I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring joy back. I just love joy so much. And so joy is my word of the year. So this is what it looks like. So let's say I have to do something that does not feel joyful for me. I got to, like, I don't know, do my taxes or something, right? And I cannot for the life of me find any joy in that, organizing all my papers and then balancing my oh God, I'd rather shake my head with a cheese grater than do that shit, right? So I'm like, okay. So then I ask myself, how can I make this more joyful? And that's how I get it done. I'm like, okay, I need some really good playlist. I need an accounting playlist, right? Maybe I need, you know, whatever. Maybe I need a friend that can help me, that just sit there with me in my misery and just organize my files, right? Because, you know, it's amazing. It's sort of like decluttering your garage. Nobody wants to declutter the garage except someone who loves organizing stuff. So that's when you like phone a friend, you know, and you're like, hey, you know how you're so good at paperwork? Can you come over and just help me? And there's, you know, people who are good at that love to help, right? That's what I mean by, so you still got it. So, you know, Nicole, when you said, I don't feel like doing that, but it's like, I know I need to. If I can't just cop out. Well, I could, and then just wait for the government to come find me, you know, and, you know, lay on all the penalties for not filing my taxes. Yeah, that does not sound joyful to me. So the alternative is very, very much no joy. So then I think, how do I get this joyfully done? Right? How can I curate more joy in this task that is difficult? And same thing, let's say I plan an adventure, like, couple of years ago, I hiked this epic hike to the West Coast Trail, which is in Canada on Vancouver Island. And it's this 8-day, like, through hike, you know, when you're carrying everything, you know, like 40 pounds. And like my pack was so heavy that when we went on the shuttle bus, the guy on the bus said, good luck with that. That's what he said to my pack. That's how heavy it was. He's like, good luck with that. And I got to say, it was hard. It was rainy. It was muddy. It was miserable. I sprained my ankle. Like, all kinds of bad stuff happened on this trip. But guess what? I was with my best girlfriends, And it was an adventure. Like, we were like, we can do it. Like, we can, and we just gutted it out. And I tell you now that trip, we're probably gonna be talking about it still when we're 80. Yeah. So just because you do something difficult doesn't mean your life has to be all like sunshine roses. We can do hard things. That's a quote from Glennon Doyle, right? She'll say that all the time. We can do hard things, but we have to keep our eye on the prize. Right. And I think that's when we cop out, when we're not clear on why we're even doing that, because not every task has to be joyful, but we also know the finish is very joyful. Right. And if we can make that journey joyful. So that's how I would approach my business, ventures, you name it, even my fitness, whatever I'm trying to do. I want it to be joyful. Make sense?
Beth, I think that right there, and as soon as you said it, you said, how can I do this in a joyful way? It just literally changes the whole, just how your lenses, how you're looking at something. And exactly. Even when things come up, and I'm going to take that on, like with everything that I'm doing, I'm like, if this was joyful and fun and creative, how would I do it? Mm-hmm. Like, if this was to be whatever the words are, if this was to be ABC, well, how would I do it? And I think like even I just felt this lightness and this creativity of, well, how would you approach that?
Love it.
Situation.
Right. Or and here I'm going to plant a little seed. I'm going to be a little tease right now is that when we're going to do another call in a couple of weeks. And on that call, I'll show you how to choose your word. So it's actually the word for you. So, but I'm not going to do it right now. Gonna have to wait. You can pick one that you love anyways, but in 2 weeks, I will show you this exercise that will like blow your, it'll drop, your word will drop in and you're like, holy shit, that's my word.
Cannot wait.
Okay.
Oh. Now that's going to be a long 2 weeks, but it's going to be
worth it.
Yeah. Beth, my question is around creating boundaries and basically what's the bullshit that we hear around this?
Oh gosh. Okay, you tell me. What do you think? What's the bullshit we hear about boundaries?
You go back.
I feel one of mine would be the bullshit around boundaries would the ego be coming in? Like, how do I explain it? I feel like I'm thinking too much around it, but I don't know.
Okay, I've got a thought, like, and it's more of a question around it as well. So with boundaries, right? So some of maybe the bullshit or how to approach them is people like, say if I'm setting a boundary and it's becoming so rigid that I'm missing the present moment. So say, for example, if it's like, well, this is my boundary. It's like, I don't do that call or that conversation or that work after this time. And no, I can't go out because I'm doing this. And then magic happens in moments. And so sometimes I think we need to have some flexibility. And how do you balance the fluid around boundaries and also, but staying true to, so you're not exhausted and you're not being
oh god. Okay. Whew, okay, there's so much. We could do a whole workshop, and we should spend the weekend together because I'm dying to come back to Australia. So let's plan a really delicious, that would be very joyful.
Ladies, who is in?
Yeah, like let's get together and work this shit out, because so I'm just going to say that this is not a simple thing. Boundary setting is a practice. So you don't kind of like get good at it one day and then you're wicked forever. It's not like driving when you figure out how to drive and then you pretty much drive when you're half asleep or half drunk. And not that you should drive when you're half drunk, but you know what I mean? Like, when we first start driving, we're like, oh my God, you pay attention to everything. And then eventually it's rote, right? Boundaries setting is not like that. It's not just automatic. Like, it's easy. No. Yes. Woo. No big deal. Right. Okay, so what you're asking about is, so there's two things here around, when to say yes and when to say no, and then when to make exceptions is kind of what I'm hearing from you, Nicole. So this is my favorite because it reminds me of like when my kids were really young, there was an author I read by the name of Barbara Coloroso, and she wrote this book called Kids Are Worth It. And she was like, you know, this is like in the, I don't know, 80s or something, where she was like the parenting guru, the go-to. Everybody was reading Barbara Coloroso. And from her, I learned probably my favorite thing around boundary setting, around parenting, around leadership. It all comes from Barbara Coloroso's parenting workshop that I took once, or book. And here's what she says. So I'm going to first talk about it in the way that she did it, and then I'll explain how we can juxtapose this. So Barbara Coloroso says there's 3 types of parents. So let's all think of our parents right now, and you can know which one was your parent. So first of all, the first parent was the brick wall parent. So the brick wall parent is all rules, very rigid, lots of responsibilities. You know, there's chore wheels. There's, you know, we eat this on Tuesday, like rigid household, right? Almost militant, the brick wall family. And guess what kind of kids the brick wall family produces?
Military.
Yeah, well, either that they love that, or
opposite.
Yeah, they rebel, right? They're like, they can't take it because it's so rigid, right? It's just too rigid. So often you end up with rebellious kids in that model that can't take the rigidity. And often people who are raised in a very rigid, militant, or maybe super religious, or like whatever, a house of rules. If you were raised in a house of rules, it somehow made a promise to yourself, consciously or unconsciously, that said, I'm not going to raise my kids this way. This was not fun. And then you're at risk of becoming the second type of parent, which is the jellyfish parent, which is no rules, right? Do whatever you want. Everybody's just like, it's just chaos. There's no like sit down suppers. There's no, everybody can do whatever they want. Come home when you want. There's no curfew. There's no chores. There's nothing, right? It's just free for all. And the parents really want to be their children's friend. Just want to be your best friend, right? To which I'll say, don't do it. Don't be jellyfish. Do not. Because what kind of kids were raised in jellyfish homes?
Well, I would say the opposite.
Yeah, like total entitled, spoiled brats, right? That expect that they even know what work is because they've never been asked to do anything, right? So that's no good, right? So then you have to go, well, what's in the middle? And that's the backbone parent. And the backbone parent has rules. They have chores, they have responsibilities, but they also have exceptions. They also have times where they go, you know what, let's just go for it. Or what, you can just stay up. Or what the heck? Like, I'll never forget this one time when my a really good friend of ours' wife was away. And so the husband, which is also a very good friend of ours, he comes over for dinner because his wife's away. He's like, what are you guys cooking? I don't know what to cook for my kids. Come over. The kids are quite young at the time, school age. So they come over for dinner, and then my husband and him start watching hockey. They start drinking a few beers. Pretty soon, you know, my friend goes, I don't think I can drive home, right? This is like a Wednesday night. So I'm like, great. We've got 2 drunk dads. I'm, texting my friends, thanks for leaving me with your husband. Like, what the hell? So anyways, so we said to the kids, hey, guess what? We're going to have a sleepover tonight. They're like, what? On a school night? Like, they're like, whoa! Like, this is the greatest thing ever. And you have a backbone house because the kids recognize it as an exception. And they're grateful. They don't expect it. And that's why they're grateful. Does that make sense? Yeah. So back to you, Nicole. So thinking about jellyfish, right? So if you're like, I only work on Tuesdays, or I never work past 2 p.m., or I never, right? I think anytime you say those words, I never, you're just asking for the universe to send you an exception, right? When you're going to have to choose whether you'll waffle or not. And, and that's where your values come into play, because if it compromises your most core values, like, I don't know, like let's say, being humanitarian is a core value of yours. So if something feels abusive to you, you're going to be like, that's a hard no. right? But something like, could you make an exception and work late? You know, like here's a great example. I just had a client who's going through, a coaching client of mine who's going through, like, you name it, changes. Not only is her whole relationship that is just imploded, but she's got a job offer that is so beautiful. And so she's like, oh my gosh. So she gave notice to her old company, and then that old company freaked out and basically made her like this unbelievable offer. So now she's freaking out. She's got the boyfriend who's like obsessing because they broke up. She's got the new company, the old company. She's like, oh my God. And we're not scheduled to have a coaching session. I literally just had a coaching session with her on Monday. So you know what I said to her? I said, would you like a coaching session this week? An extra one? And we can work this through. And I'm also offered her after this call, which I normally would never work this late. That's not my norm. My daytime kind of hour, my normal office hours are actually 10 to 2. But do I make an exception? Yes. Right? I make an exception for delicious Australian women. And I make an exception for a client who's going through a shitstorm right now. But it's not normal. Not every week would I offer a bonus session into the evening, into my dinner hour with a client. That's not normal. And that would be an example of backbone kind of leadership, backbone business, where it doesn't compromise my value. It's just a normal way of doing something. And I'm willing to make exceptions sometimes, but not all the time.
You have such a way of just giving so much clarity with the way that you just, your stories and your experience. And and sometimes it's all in your head, and it's like, I feel like the answer's in there, like I know it, but I just can't verbalize, work it out yet. And thank you.
You're welcome. Right. And when the exceptions are not good, if you really notice, and then I think the last thing I want to say this, and maybe we'll pick more, we'll expand more on this maybe on our next call that we do together, because I think this is so important to really know what you stand for. Like what is the ground that you stand on? Because then if you're not clear about that, how do you possibly set good boundaries? Then you're always kind of going with how it feels, which is icky or not good, and that's okay. I mean, I think that's a good litmus test. So we'll leave this conversation with just that. Notice your body. When your body contracts, or does it expand? So if someone asks you something, do you feel like, do you want to, can I buy you a drink after work? Oh, that's delicious. Yes, you can. Right? Or, hey, can you come help me move this weekend? I don't really want to, right? But maybe I should. Should I help you? Am I moving soon? Do I need a favor? Should I bank it? And those are the kind of times where you're going to have to notice your body, how because your body actually answers often way before you even are cognizant of how you really want to say yes or no. So anyways, more on that later.
I'm going to buy that book after. Kids Are Worth It.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
Because when you speak about the relationships, the career, the physical activity, and the mindfulness or the spirituality, I feel and I've got little kids, and it's just, I feel at the moment that's 99% of everything, and that's where the boundaries, when you asked me before, I couldn't answer you because I just went to being a parent and boundaries instead of business, but it doesn't matter because it still is both together. And that's my biggest takeaway. And that was beautiful. But we've got a couple more questions, Nick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
So you said to us, because this is a fun one, right? So you said a couple of weeks ago, you're like, I've got more sass in my 50s than I did in my 20s. So my question is this, because I'm in my 30s, how do I speed up the sass?
Oh, that's such a good one. Oh, so good.
Or waiting until I'm
Well, I don't know. It's funny because hopefully you can. I'm not saying you can. Hopefully you can. It's interesting because it's funny, like when I was in my 20s, I thought I was the cat's meow. I thought I knew everything in my 20s. And then when I got to my 30s, I realized like, maybe I don't know everything. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Somebody is. And then I got to my 30s and I realized, okay, I don't know anything. I don't know everything. So that's okay. And I'll learn some things. And then by the time I got to my 40s, I realized, yeah, I definitely still don't know everything. And now I don't really care, right, to know everything. And then by the time I got to my 50s, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There was something really liberating, you know, in the season of my life where now my kids are adult. I mean, they still live with me, but they're technically adults. So, but they, you know, I just really kind of decided, you know, I kind of just gave my own hashtag, you know, I'm too old for this shit. And so I realized, I think it was probably, I don't know if it's an age thing. So maybe this will help you, is that I really feel like for so much of my 20s and 30s, I was such a people pleaser. I wanted people to like me so bad, right? And I would compromise, talk about values. I compromised my values, my spirit, my schedule, my body, like you name it. I compromised just so someone would like me or not be mad at me or not, you know, want to do business with me, or, yeah, I mean, you name it. I was a pleaser. So, you know, it took a while to get into recovery because I realized it was just sucking the life out of me. And I was resenting every single person that I said yes to when I really meant no. And, you know, that's really what I probably, if you wanted to expedite any, you know, the sass factor, I would just adopt the hashtag right now. What are you too old for right now? What do you not want to put up with? Right? Mm. Like drama, you know, toxic people, you know, things that are hard. Like, well, my girlfriend and I were just talking about that. Like, not things that are hard, but people that are hard, right? When people are so difficult, you're like, why am I working so hard to, you know, maintain this friendship? It's like, you know, it's too hard. I like easy now. I like supportive. I like fun. I'm okay with, you know, I'm okay with people being mad at me now. And that's the thing about boundary setting, is it really pisses off the people that have been violating your boundaries for quite a while. And especially if you've taught them that you're a person that has no boundaries, or you're a people pleaser, believe me, once you kind of get the fence up, people are like, what the, right? They are mad, yeah. Which is really a great feedback for you that you should have set that boundary quite a bit longer. But you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with people being mad at you, because that's not your stuff. You know, there's another author, beautiful author, Byron Katie, and she says there's 3 kinds of stuff: my stuff, your stuff, and God's stuff, or universe, if you don't want the G word. And you just got to get clear. So here's another tip for the those of you in your 30s: get clear on what's your stuff and what's not. Because if you know that, you will not feel guilty. You're like, that's not mine. Yeah. And that's what I know now. What's my stuff and what's not. And that's why when people are like, you know, like I have a few little toxic family members, and when they're like so mad, they're like, you're that, right? And they'll text me these like vicious things. And I literally just reply, please don't text me that. This is not okay. If you want to have a conversation, call me. Right? And then live in a conversation, I will say, this is not okay. You know, this is what's happening. Well, yeah, you know, and they go off, and I just go, not my stuff.
Yeah. So good.
But I tell you that, I don't know if I would have learned that in my 30s, maybe, but nobody taught me. So I had to learn it myself. It took me till I was 50.
Oh, so good. Beth, thank you so much. Like, I've got a page full of notes here. And, Beck and I always re-listen to our sessions, because it's usually not our own ones, only when we bring on a woman, because that's when it is. But we just want to thank you so much. We're so excited for you to just be another pillar and another support person and contributor to this space and these women, because ladies, I mean, you only got a taste of Beth right now, and I'm sure that you can just feel how much value and just juicy goodness she's going to be able to bring to you, and we're so excited. So In 2 weeks' time, ladies, we are doing another call. And I don't know if you want to share too much about it at the moment, Beth, or over the next couple.
Or we could tell the title, right? We're gonna do the title. The title of the next little kind of talk we're doing is called The Other F Word, and you know, and it's really about, you know, aging wildly in a world that wants you to kind of calm down. And we're going to talk about being alive. We're going to talk more about all this stuff. You know, I hope, you know, if there's questions that people bring to the table, I would love them. And you know, I don't know the format or whatever, but you know, we're going to talk about some really juicy stuff.
I love it. I can't wait. So ladies, lock it in your diary. It's 2 weeks and 1 day away. So in Australia, that's going to be the 12th of November. We're going to do this. So we'll put up the
11th for me.
11th for you.
Yeah,
Beth, I've got one more kind of thing that we want you to leave the ladies with. Like if you could only give 2 pieces of advice, like maybe it was up on a billboard or it was in like a book that you had to leave a heap of women with, and that's all they could read, what would the 2 pages say?
Okay, ask that again. If I could leave what?
So if you could leave 2 pieces of advice, 2 things that you'd want women to know.
Oh man, that feels so weighted. Oh my. I would say that, let me think about that for a minute, because I don't want to be too pat, because I have something that kind of popped into my head, but then and now it just feels like such a beautiful question. I want to honor it actually, because it is just really, really beautiful. I think the first thing I would probably say is keep your promises to yourself. That would probably be my biggest one, because I think as women and potentially recovering people pleasers, if you're like me, we keep our promises to everybody. Like I don't know about you guys, you know, you probably don't break promises to other people, right? If you say, I'll be there, I'll help you, I'll do that, I'll take care of that, I will handle that, we do it. But what I notice is that this is true for me as well, is that sometimes I'll break the promise I make to myself. And I would say, when you get into a habit, and really that's all anything really is, right? We are all just our habits. Maybe that would be my second little gem to live with. We're all just a bundle of habits. That's all we are, right? Our whole lives are just built on habits, some good and some not so good. And so anytime you want to change up something, right? Just change a habit you have. Because you know, and I remember years ago, I worked with a woman who was actually had a lot of mental health challenges, and you know, she had a developmental disability, and she came to me in a way where everyone in the whole world said to her that she was bad and her behavior was bad, and you know, to be fair, she did have little violent episodes for sure, but so she had this habit of hurting people when she was mad, like pulling people's hair out, and you know, it's a little on the violent side for sure. But I started working with her, and I said to her, we'll just call her Mary, I said, Mary, you are not a bad person, you are a beautiful person, you just have some bad habits. And she was like, really? Like, she'd never, literally in her whole life, no one had ever said that. She just said, you know, your behavior, you're awful. And all of us, I think, can learn from that we often think that we suck, we're this, we're that. We're not. It's just your habits. So habits can be changed. You are beautiful.
Oh, what a beautiful way to wrap this up. I love that so much.
I feel like sorry, Nick, you go.
I was just going to say this, that we're incredibly grateful. And for the ladies who are listening in and those listening to the recording, who is a woman that you know needs this conversation in her ears and needs Beth in her corner, invite her into this group, tag her into this. And, you know, we want more women listening to this conversation because it's just so good.
I just feel like I don't need my counselor anymore. Like, I feel like that was, you speak about coaching the whole woman, and that 1 hour I've never been able to crack some of the things you've said in weeks and months of chats with other professionals. So I just want to say thank you. It was, you've just made me realize that I'm an incredible parent as well with some of the things you've reminded, because, you know, the guilt comes in and the overthinking and it's just, you know, I'm not here to, even, what did you say before? You said, we're not going there. And that's just it's a great little one-liner, like little things we can put in our pocket and deal with no matter what comes at us. So that was so special.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I love you guys. Like, just want to hug you both so much. But, well, thank you. I want to thank you for all these juicy, delicious questions, you know, that just, you know, obviously I can just go off. Like, I'm going to work on my being succinct on the Lex call. But it's
no, please don't.
Happen. I'm probably
please
just
don't.
Yeah.
Please don't. I'm counting it down. 2 weeks time. It's going to be great, ladies. So stay in the page for all the information. And Beth, thank you again for speaking to us and just being part of this community now.
It is my absolute privilege and pleasure. Mwah!